You know, all of your bikes, whether they're Japanese or they're European, they all have a very, very special little difference to them. And the difference is the screws. If you look closely on your Japanese bike, you'll have a JIS screw. It's Japanese industry standard as opposed to a Phillips. They are different when you look close. The depth of how the screwdriver will fit into that JIS screw is different from the way it will fit into your Phillips screw. Jordan has some slides here, and I'll show you a couple of the other differences. Now, you'll see in the next slide that You'll see it in the next slide. There it is, Jordan. Here's a really good picture of what the screwdriver tip looks like when you have a JIS screw or a Phillips screw. And if you look closely, you can see how it's a lot pointier and it goes in deeper into the head of the screw on a JIS. Yes, you can get them out with a Phillips, but if you look closely here, you could see where it's not quite as pointy on the Phillips. And when you go to put that Phillips screwdriver into that JIS screw, it's not going to go deep enough into that screw. And sometimes if the screw is a little too tight in there, or it's seized, or it's been sitting there for years, whatever it might be, that's when you always run the risk of stripping out the head of that screw. So you want to make sure, and this is also important if you're using an impact, one of those impact drivers like you use with a hammer where it'll twist that screw out. It's also very, very important when you use that, maybe even more so, because when you do slam that impact, if it's not the right tip in there, it's not a JIS tip, you're definitely going to strip out the screw. So it's really, really a good idea to look closely at what you have. Here's another good aerial view, so to speak, of the way it looks on the top of a JIS screw. It comes just like an exact cross across there, as with the Phillips, you've got that little round circle in the middle where you're not going to get the same amount maybe of torque, for lack of a better word. You're not going to get as much bite on that screw if you're using the wrong screwdriver. So you want to make sure you use a JIS when it's applicable. Also, on your bikes, if you look closely, especially on your Hondas, you'll see a little dimple in the screw just the way you see it here. That tells you that's a JIS screw. Okay? On Hondas especially, it has a little plus sign on there. If you look closely on those bikes, you'll see it, and your other Japanese bikes as well. So I wanted to bring that to your attention, that there is a difference between a JIS and a Phillips screw, and the proper screwdriver or impact tip, if you're going to be using that, would be really, really important to make sure you get the right one. Otherwise, you're going to wind up stripping that screw out. It's also a great idea to make sure you have the right JIS screwdriver when you go to reassemble a bike. There's a good picture of it right there. So next time, try that.